Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Let me go ahead and put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and talk with you guys for a little while. Alright, so I always get questions both in real life, people I know, friends, family, things like that, people at the gym, and of course people online will say things like, look, I'm not growing right now, I'm training hard, I'm eating enough, I'm doing whatever, I'm not growing. What's going on? Or I have a set of muscles that aren't growing, and it's real simple. If you're not growing, it's because you're not getting stronger. Now, that might sound like a controversial statement to some people, but it's really not. And some people will come in, well, how come this powerlifter or that isn't really big when they're strong and everything? It's because you don't understand what I'm talking about with strength, when I'm talking about progressive overload. Getting stronger means you are actually making your muscles stronger. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily moving more weight through any means necessary. There's a big difference. And when I'm talking about strength, I'm not talking about 1 rep maxes. I'm talking about your 5 rep maxes, your 10 rep maxes, your 12 rep maxes. All right, how much weight can you move on an exercise through a full range of motion for a given number of reps? All right, that is a big component of strength also. Strength is not just what do you max in a competitive environment, or how much can you max with shitty form where you're reducing range of motion. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about here, let me give you an example. If someone comes to me and I'm watching them bench press and they say, hey, my chest isn't getting bigger, my triceps aren't getting bigger. And I watch them bench press and they're using some sloppy technique to where they're arched way up. They've got a really wide bench press and they're bouncing the bar off their chest and doing 3 reps with a given amount of weight. And let's say that's you. You take a weight that you have to bounce off your chest with a wide grip, or you don't even touch your chest. And I would look at that person and say, okay, how about you focus on getting stronger on your closed grip bench press with a pause? Let's actually build some strength. Let's actually move a weight using only your muscles, not bouncing a weight off of anything, through a long range of motion, and focus on getting really strong on that. The closed grip bench press actually in some cases can work your chest more than a wide grip bench press because you're forcing everything to work through a longer range of motion. It's not just a tricep exercise, it's a chest builder. And it's also a fantastic strength builder for athletes in general. So, closed grip means shoulder width, guys. Usually your thumbs are almost on the smooths or right on the smooths. All right, a closed grip bench press is like this. You come all the way down to the lower chest, and look at that range of motion. You're having to move a heavy weight a very long distance. That's a lot of work done. You know what makes muscles grow? Subjecting them to work. Workload is what makes muscles grow. That's what stimulates growth. That's it, nothing else. Yeah, sure, isolation movements have their place. The pump has its place, but that stuff is only going to get you so far. What you're going to find is that if you want to get really big, focusing on all of those things, those refinement exercises, you're going to have to keep adding drugs in. And people are like, well, I don't want to use drugs. Well, then you better give up any dreams of putting on a lot of muscle mass doing a bunch of fluff and pump. That only works for guys on gear, and what they usually do when they quit growing with the fluff and pump, they just add more drugs, they up the dose. If that's not your goal, you don't want to do that, you're going to have to actually get stronger. You're going to have to force your muscles to actually do work. Even as Arnold Schwarzenegger said, and you guys know I'm not a bodybuilder, I have my own issues with bodybuilding, but people want to do it, that's their business. I can still give them advice on how to do it. It's all physiology, it's all exercise science. The human body is a human body. But even Arnold Schwarzenegger said, you can't chisel a pebble. And what he meant by that was that people need to focus on the basics. They need to focus on getting bigger before they focus on refining things. You can't refine your body when you haven't built it yet. So he would even tell you that, isolation movements shouldn't be taking up a lot of your place through most of your training, including even your off season, even for people who were professional bodybuilders during his era. He would say the same thing. You focus on the basics during the off season, get bigger. Worry about all the refinement work when you're peaking for a bodybuilding show. And he had that approach. He would add more isolation movements as he got further along or closer to a contest. But you focus on the basics, you get stronger. That fluff and pump stuff will only get you so far. And I'm not saying isolation movements don't have their place. They absolutely do, even for athletes and powerlifters. But if they're your biggest focus and you're not focusing on getting strong and doing real work, you are going to limit your growth. You're going to have one hell of an uphill climb. But what I mean is, let's take closed grip bench press. You're struggling with your chest, but you're using this crappy form on a bench press, well, let's take something that was maybe your 1 rep max, bouncing it off your chest, do a close grip, start with a weight lighter that you can handle for 5 or 6 reps or 10 or whatever, where you can pause on your chest for a 1 count. And when you focus on doing that for long enough, for a few months or whatever it takes, when you get to the point to where you can take what you were having to bounce off your chest with a shorter range of motion, using inertia with the bounce with a wide grip, and you can close grip, pause that for 5 reps, I promise you your pecs are probably going to be almost twice the size they were before. You're probably going to add an inch to your triceps when you go from doing that other bullshit to actually getting strong and making the muscles work, making the muscles get the weight started from a dead stop and pushing it through a long range of motion. When you get that crappy bouncing wide grip bullshit max up to your 5 rep max with a pause on a close grip, I promise you your pecs are going to be twice as big. You know when they're going to get even bigger? When you can take that and instead of doing it for 5, you can do it for 10 reps. They're going to be even bigger. This stuff isn't rocket science. I mean, we can talk about periodization, and I do talk about advanced periodization and stuff, but most people don't need that. Most people just need to learn to do more work. They need to force their muscles to do more work. Same thing, someone comes to me and says, well, you know, my biceps aren't growing. And they're doing curls and all these curls, and they're struggling to get bicep growth. And my question for them would be, how strong are you on your weighted pull-ups? How much can you do a weighted pull-up with from a dead hang? Oh, they don't do weighted pull-ups. Well, maybe that's their problem. I like curls. I love incline curls. I think incline curls are a fantastic exercise. I think they're a fantastic exercise for power lifters. They're great. Fantastic exercise. But do you think that's all you need to build your biceps? If you think curls alone are going to build the biceps that you want, then you better learn to like Synthol. And I promise you, doing weighted chin-ups hurts less than Synthol does and has a lot less chance of infection. The reason a lot of these YouTubers use Synthol, they need it. A ton of them are on it. Boston Lloyd's not the only one using it. There are quite a few. You know what? Biceps aren't growing. Hey, why don't you get stronger on your weighted chin-ups from a dead hang? Oh, you can't do them with weight yet? Well, how many chin-ups are you doing every week? Do a couple chin-ups every day till you get strong enough at the exercise to where you can do it weighted from a dead hang. I promise you, if you do a couple chin-ups every single day, you're going to get stronger on it. Your biceps will probably start growing from that. Focus on doing weighted chin-ups. Get stronger at them. Get stronger at them. And if you still need more, throw in some incline curls and stuff behind them. There's nothing wrong with isolating a muscle like the bicep that's lagging a bit. It's not going to hurt you at all. No problem with it. But that shouldn't be your primary focus. You need to be doing big, basic exercises. You need to subject your body to work, and you'll get the added bonus from doing all those weighted chin-ups and building your back up a little bit too. It's going to make you look bigger. Probably make your waist look smaller too. And it's going to give you a lot more functional strength, but that's going to build your biceps. Do your curls afterwards. Same thing. I get a lot of guys who are like, oh, you know, my hamstrings aren't growing fast enough. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. All my posterior chain is weak. I'll go in and watch them. They're doing sumo deadlifts and shit and bouncing it off the floor. So no, why don't you do some conventional deadlifts? Why don't you actually pull a weight from a full range of motion? Sumo deadlifts are for power lifters who are trying to get a better max by reducing range of motion depending on their leverages. They're not the best strength builder. They're not the best size builder. Try doing some conventional deadlifts. Get strong on those. You would want to do it even better. You want to hit your hamstrings, glutes, lower back, and everything even harder. Put some work boots on with a 1-inch heel, or do them in your squat shoes. Add another inch to the range of motion in the hardest part where the muscle has to work harder. Yeah, you might have to use less weight, but you're going to work harder. You get to a point to where you can, off of a 1-inch deficit, do your old max for 5 reps. I promise you all of that stuff is going to grow. It is strength. It is workload. It is horsepower, basically, that causes your muscles to grow. I mean, that's the analogy I've heard that was the most amazing analogy I've ever heard about the human body. The human body is an amazing machine. It's an amazing engine. Because, you know, with a normal engine, internal combustion engine, if you subject a 10 horsepower engine to a 12 horsepower load, it'll eventually wear out from it. It'll wear it down. It'll break. When you take a 10 horsepower human body and you subject it to a 12 horsepower workload, it eventually becomes a 12 horsepower human engine, doesn't it? And if it becomes one, and that becoming it requires adaptations. That requires structural adaptations. That structural adaptation is thicker muscle fibers, bigger muscles. That's how you get there. I mean, there's other factors involved, but when you gain strength through workload, I don't mean strength through using technique. I don't mean strength by trimming down range of motion and adjusting leverages to make things easier. When you build strength through workload, it always puts muscle mass on you every single time without fail. It is impossible for muscles not to grow when you subject those muscles to more workload over time consistently. People will say, well, not always you're not getting enough sleep or enough food, they won't grow. That's true, but you also won't be able to subject them to more workload. You'll stall in the workload because they're not growing. Because increasing the workload will require the muscle to grow. And it's a perpetual cycle. So what I always tell to people again, if you are struggling to grow, you're finding it difficult to grow, you've hit a sticking point in growing, it's not because you aren't lifting, it's because you aren't getting stronger. You aren't focusing on the basics and subjecting your muscles to more work, more real work. All right. See this all the time. No one wants to actually come in and do work, and they think they're working hard because they keep adding weight to the bar, and they cheat more on their curls, or they start doing preacher curls and they add weight and they start not locking out at the bottom so they can use more weight. What the fuck is that? You're doing less work. You do less work. You come in and you find ways to cheat just so you can do less work and do a bunch of fluff isolation movements, and you start doing those with partials, and then you wonder why you're not growing, guys. And I'm not talking to everyone. I'm talking to the guys who do this. Well, there's your answer. Because you're not doing more work. You aren't working harder. You aren't subjecting the muscles to more load, and therefore they are not growing. Get stronger and you will grow every single time. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.